After nearly 7 decades in show business,
I just do eyes.
actor James Hong is finally getting the recognition he deserves from Hollywood. Even those who may not know the name will be sure to recognize his face and voice.
Go out there, enjoy your fans, and realize that the best food in China is made by me.
With nearly 700 film and TV credits under his belt since he started out in Hollywood in the 1950s, Hong is now one of the most prolific actors of all time. And at 93, there is no slowing him down. But it hasn't been easy. The Chinese-American trailblazer has spent his career fighting demeaning Asian stereotypes in Hollywood.
There was that feeling lingering here in Hollywood and Los Angeles that the Chinese were still second-grade citizens. They're just unwanted immigrants.
In this episode of Talking Post, we sit down with the venerable James Hong to discuss his struggles, successes, and legacy. James Hong, welcome to the show. You're such a familiar face. You're the guy that everyone recognizes instantly. They may not necessarily know your name, but they'll say, I've seen him somewhere. Which movie was it? Or which TV show was it? Out of all the roles that you've done, which is the one that people shout out at you, like lines you've said in a show or something? Which is the one you get recognized most for?
In America, they love that TV show Seinfeld. Seinfeld is very well known because it was one of the top 5 Seinfeld episodes.
The Seinfeld scene, are you talking about the Cartwright scene? Is that what you get recognized for?
When I say, Cartwright, telephone for Cartwright, answer, so I hang up.
Yes, I just got a call. I yell, Cartwright, Cartwright, just like that. Nobody came up, I hang up.
Of course, the other thing that when I go to a convention, they want me to sign the pictures for Big Trouble Little China, my role as Lo Pan. For some reason, they love that character. I don't know exactly why.
It was a great character, James. That's why. It was a great character.
Well, I tell you, Lo Pan, although he looks like he's a magical wizard, but he's a down-to-earth fellow. All he wants is a love, love from a girl with green eyes, and he wants to marry her. So in a sense, I think people identify with that desperation of a guy who wants a girl, and yet he wants to rule the world. So, you do 700 roles or whatever, and there's a couple or a handful that people like. You can't tell why.
James, not just movies and TV shows, but can you imagine how prolific you are? Many years ago, when I was playing this computer game, World of Warcraft, and entered some random dungeon, and there was this NPC in the dungeon, a character that I whacked on the head, and he started speaking, and oh my God, that was James Hong. You can recognize your voice distinctly there, your accent.
It's funny, you say you recognize the voice. I've done these video games that are very popular, and people recognize the voice. As a young fellow, I never thought my voice would be anything, For some reason, there's a certain resonance or quality in the voice that people would recognize, like Mr. Ping, in Kung Fu Panda.
Kung Fu Panda, yes.
Everybody seems to recognize Mr. Ping, and in essence, since the studio likes Mr. Ping so much, they've had Mr. Ping from the beginning, feature number 1, 2, 3, and all the TV episodes. I'm the only actor that has done the same character all through from the beginning to what it is now and going on to the future.
Uh-huh. And I'm afraid the Emperor has taken away your title of Dragon Master. No!
I watched the first couple of Kung Fu Panda movies. They were excellent, and you were excellent in them as well. But I haven't watched the TV show, the new series that you're launching. Are you busy with that right now?
Well, it's one of my latest. I do Netflix and other, features with voiceover. But the Kung Fu Panda Dragon Knight is very popular from what I can see. And again, Mr. Ping is in it. he really doesn't belong in that particular series in a way, but they loved the character so much, the producers decided to put him in there and let Poe fight with the lady, the lady samurai or warrior. And Mr. Ping finally joins in and does some fighting too. I haven't seen the whole series, but I'm looking forward to it.
James, you were born in the US in 1929, but your early history, when you were a little boy, you actually came to Hong Kong for your early education. You were here a few years. Do you remember your time in Hong Kong?
I vaguely remember being in Kowloon. I think the school was Yok Ji Siu Hawk. And on my last trip back there a few years ago, I tried to find my grade school again, but I think it was destroyed, like most old buildings in Hong Kong and Kowloon. You just destroy it and build something new. Yes, I do remember some memories that stayed in my mind. We play soccer in the grade school, Siu Hawk, and the floor to where we were playing soccer was very rough, but like stucco, it wasn't smooth cement. So when you fell, you scuffle your knee. And it's very memorable in the sense that I didn't get into any violent situations or fights with anybody. And then when I came to America, I had to get used to the violence that was happening even in grade school in Washington, grade school in Minneapolis, because I didn't speak English right away at the age of 9. I was picked upon and they beat me up because, he's a strange character. He's from China. He doesn't speak English. So they would beat me up. And in the sense that I never dealt with violence in Kowloon, I didn't know how to deal with it in the American Washington grade school. And that was sad. But that was unfortunate in those early days. There were prejudice and violence existing in even grade school.
I can imagine growing up in the US in those days, the 1930s, 1940s, could not have been easy for Chinese people and especially Chinese immigrants and children of Chinese immigrants. Life seems pretty tough for Chinese people in the US right now with all the anti-Asian hate and all that goes on. But James, what made you go into the movies as a career?
That's true. All of that is true, and I don't know why. But to back up a little, when I first came here to Hollywood after, I was studying in University of Minnesota, James Hong didn't know that the West, Los Angeles and California, were still suffering a lot more than Minnesota from the Exclusion Act, where the Chinese were excluded from America. No passports, no immigrants from China would set their feet on the soil of America. There were that feeling lingering here in Hollywood and Los Angeles that the Chinese were still second-grade citizens. They're just unwanted immigrants. And James Hong coming to Hollywood at that time didn't know what was going on. He thought he would just be an entertainer and make people laugh, be a comedian, and just be a good actor, But that was not so, because in those days there were no leading roles for Chinese, especially like in Good Earth. In Good Earth, all the leading roles were given to the white people, and the Chinese just played the secondary roles and so forth. Well, that atmosphere lingered on for a long, long time. And I couldn't take it anymore, although I was working, but it was all those minor roles and cliche roles, gimmick roles thrown in there to make people laugh or just to lighten up the comedy, but they were gimmick things. So I started to gather a group of people, and I started the East-West Players. And East-West Players, performed some very good plays, and that started the industry to notice that we are principal actors, principal people. And then, of course, that was 40 years or so ago, and now it blossomed out into where the Asians are winning Academy Awards and they're getting series and they got good roles, you know. But it's still in just a level stage. It's not really increasing enough. In other words, a lot of my good friends who are very good actors had to quit because there are right now there are not enough roles to sustain the Asian American actors as far as livelihood goes. So I think it's going to improve because Shang-Chi and all those movies, I think, are going to elevate everything up several levels, and I think will be a very main part of the Hollywood industry.
Looking back at your career, we can see what you were just talking about, that you had to play a lot of Asian stereotypes because that was the reality then. That's the kind of gig that you were getting, even offensive stereotypes. Now, as you just said, the situation has improved a lot. You know, Chinese American actors are now coming into their own Asian American actors. But there is still a lot of that going on, right? Even now, to this day, like you said, it's not good enough. So how do you still resist? How do you overcome the challenge of being stereotyped? How do you resist being typecast?
Well, and it is due to the strength of some of my colleagues who are in good position. Like Dae-Kim, who is now a big producer. He is a very humble person who wants to do good for his fellow man. And so he one day said, James, I'm going to get you a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And I said, well, how are you going to do it? He says, I put in a program called GoFundMe. 3 days later, I called him and I say, are you sure you want to do that? And he says, James, Daniel said, James, don't worry. In this last few days, I already got a donation totaling of 55,000 or so, you know, which is the cost of putting a star on the sidewalk. And so I couldn't believe it. We had a big ceremony. I had the lion dancing, celebrating the installation of the star, and we all had a great time. So, but looking back, and even at that time, I said to myself, wow, it took me 70 years to get this star put on the Walk of Fame, a certain recognition of my 600 or 700 roles in the movie and TV. I said, it's well worth it, you know. I'm 93 now, and I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep going and do more producing and acting. There's quite a few roles coming up yet. So it's been a wonderful career. I would say to all young people, if you have the talent and the love for movie industry, just go and give it a try. Look at me, you know. I came here when there were zero chances, and look at the industry now. There is definitely a position for the Asian American actors, directors, and writers, producers, everything. It's coming to fore, and it's going to blossom quite high.
That's why you're such an inspiration and such a pioneer, James. The Hollywood Walk of Fame star that you got, that was a richly deserved honor. But if you look at the way you were given that honor, this was the many, many fans who love you and the many friends who love you who got together and said, we must honor James and give him some due recognition. The movie industry as such has not done that for you, even though you deserve it so much. Surely there must be more for you, right? An Oscar Lifetime Achievement Award, something like that?
I've got a phone call just the other day. They said, we are in the works of getting you the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Academy Awards. You know, obviously not only for my lengthy career and achievement, but also they haven't given very many Lifetime Achievement Awards in the Oscars for Asian Americans, you know. So I hope they do it, because it would be a great step and recognition not only for me, but for the Asian Americans to have somebody to receive the Lifetime Achievement Award. I think there was one handed out previously, and that's it.
Maybe you'll be the next, or should be the next, James. You're quite vocal and you're quite, you have strong feelings about the anti-Asian aspects of life in America, all that you went through. It's exploded again, hasn't it, with the COVID-19 pandemic and all that. And I get the impression that being an elderly Asian person in the US, in many cities in the US, can be quite dangerous walking on the streets for someone like you. How do you cope with that?
It is a tragic thing that there exists out here in the community of Hollywood and everywhere in the United States, a hatred for the Asian Americans. I can't even begin to fathom why they pick on those poor old people, especially who cannot defend themselves. And it really hurts me to see that. And I can't quite comprehend the reason. I guess they blame the virus, the COVID virus coming from China, they say, and infecting all the people. But I think there is a certain percentage of the Americans that still hold that hatred for Asians. And I can't understand it. And people like Dae-Kim, Janet Yang, and everybody, they're organizing the community to do good for America and for the movie industry. And that's all I've done in my whole life, is to be a good citizen and do things for the community. And I believe I have done a certain amount of good in community and also in the movie industry.
You're 93 years old, and yet you're not showing any sign of slowing down. What's your secret? What makes you keep going? Where do you get all this energy from?
Well, I still think. So every joint in my body is very loose. I can still do Kung Fu. In fact, I helped my Kung Fu teacher, James Wu, to start the first martial arts school in Los Angeles. So I study a little bit under him, and I just keep walking around the neighborhood as much as I can. And because of people like you, wanting to know what I've done, it keeps me thinking. I think I'm one of those guys that cannot stop thinking. There are so many projects to do and so many more movies. Everything is so exciting around me. So I think I better keep living and take advantage of some of those things, the chances I have created.
James, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your history with us and your experiences and your philosophy in life as well. Long may you prosper, and I hope to see you for many, many more years doing what you're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think you're doing a wonderful job. I'll look forward to more work from you. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you.